After studying this module, you shall be able to know about yogic perspective on self and identity, learn how one can achieve self-realization in life, identify the concepts of Patanjali's yoga, evaluate your knowledge about the topic, and analyze the importance of yoga in human life. Yoga is both a system of philosophy and a technology for psychosomatic spiritual development. It is one of the 6 major schools of Brahmanical philosophy. In addition to this school, there are equally complex and well-developed systems of Vedanta, Buddhists and Jainas, along with those of several tantric cults. However, to speak of yoga is to speak of certain common aspects of a broad range of Indian perspectives that are otherwise fairly divergent. Yoga as a method is possibly much older than as philosophy, even though in some ways the two are intertwined. By the time of Panini, the great grammarian who lived probably before the Buddha, yoga came to be identified as a method of achieving concentration and controlling sensory inputs and responses. Although the word yoga, in this sense of a method, appears in some of the later Upanishads such as Maitrayani, Svetastwatra and Katha, it was in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras its first systematic treatment is found. As Das Gupta points out, Patanjali collected the different yoga practices, systematized diverse ideas on the subject, and grafted them on Samkhya metaphysics. When yoga refers to a philosophical system, we use capital Y, and when it denotes a method, Y is in lowercase. The cryptic style of the yoga aphorisms makes it essential for the students of yoga to rely on old, well-known commentaries that have explained the meaning and significance of the original compact text, a text that involves fewer than 200 one or two line aphorisms. The most important and well-known of all commentaries is that of Vyas about 4th to 5th century AD. The Indian approaches to consciousness have developed in the context of Adhyatma or spiritual life. In yoga, the misery involved in the unending cycle of birth, death and rebirth is considered similar to a disease. According to Patanjali's theory, the root cause of this misery is the identification of the real self, the knower, with the objects of his knowledge, the known. Yoga does not simply aim to be a therapeutic program for helping patients suffering from physical or neurotic symptoms, rather is a spiritual quest for the ultimate release from the miseries of life. Basic principles of Patanjali's Yoga. Yoga is based upon the dualistic metaphysics of Samkhya system, which suggests two basic principles of reality, namely the Prakriti and Purusha. Purusha is often considered synonymous with the real self. It manifests itself in the form of innumerable souls residing in all kinds of living creatures. It is metaphorically described as immutable light because it accounts for the illuminating character of consciousness. Prakriti underlies the material world. The product of the contact of Purusha with Prakriti is called Chit. It leads to the origination of individual phenomenon selves as distinguished from unattached real selves or Purushas, which is involved in the journey from one life cycle to another. Chitta stands for all that is psychological in man. It is primarily the seat of all experiences and repository of their residual effects. It refers to totality of the senses, the ego and the intellect. Thus, it can be referred to as the mind. The capacity and ability of Chitta is provided by Purusha. However, The content is based on Prakriti. Therefore, Chitta is majorly considered a part of the world of Prakriti. Chitta involves three basic qualities or gunas, namely Sattva or luminosity, Rajas or activity, and Tamas, heaviness or inertia. Constant interplay of these three qualities leads to modification in Chitta called Vrittis. Patanjali has classified Vrittis in 5 major categories, which are: the first, Pramana, or the cognitive processes leading to valid cognition such as direct perception, inference, and verbal testimony from a trustworthy person. Second is Vipraya, or the cognitive processes leading to erroneous cognition. Third is Vikalpa, or imagination or fantasy. Fourth is Nidra, or sleep, and the fifth is Smriti, or recollection. Patanjali defines yoga as the control or restraint of the processes of consciousness. The ability of controlling one's mental processes leads to the ideal human condition free from all miseries. Vyas describes several conditions of Chitta. These are Sit or wandering, Mudh or stupefied, Vikaspita or occasionally steady, Ekagra or one-pointed, Niruddh or restrained. The first three conditions are collectively called Vyuthana condition and are considered unsuitable for yoga. On the other hand, restraint is the most crucial aspect of yoga. Patanjali defines yoga as the restraint of the processes of consciousness. Yoga implies that the mental and the physical aspects of man are not dichotomized. This understanding is based on the law of karma, which states that all actions are a part of cosmic system, where every action is part of the lawful sequence of law and effect. The karma is thought of in three aspects: motor or bodily aspect, which is kayika, the verbal aspect or vachika, and the mental aspect or the manas. Hereby, the mental and the physical aspects of man are placed on the same continuum. The residual effects of all mental and physical activity are considered to be cumulative. The traces left behind by all experience are accumulated and carried forward from one life cycle to the next in the unending cycle of birth and death. The totality of the effects of past experiences and behavior is called karmasaya, which is manifest in three forms: species or jati, span of life or ayus, and enjoyment or suffering, bhog. According to Patanjali, the root cause for all suffering is misconception or avidya, whereby one mistakes the non-self for the self, the impermanent for the permanent, bad for good, and misery for happiness. Here, it is assumed that sensual enjoyment is not lasting and cannot give pure happiness. Worldly enjoyment, such as wealth and power, are impermanent. The identification of the self with one's body is a basic confusion. The body is impermanent. These misconceptions lead to sources of suffering, which are egoism or asmita, seeking or rag, avoidance or dvesh, and love of life or willingness to live, which is abhinesva. Patanjali's concept of self and identity would explain these misconceptions we carry. As stated already, these misconceptions are source of all misery. Self and identity. The yoga theory makes a distinction between the knower and the known, and it also asserts the unchanging nature of the self as knower. According to the yogic view, knowledge is possible due to the meditation of the chitta between the knower on one hand and the object of knowledge on the other. This process of shaping of the mind so as to reflect the properties of an object of knowledge takes place in the sphere of the material prakriti. The yogic theory thus makes a distinction among the three different elements that make knowledge possible. First, There is the sentient principle of the Purusha, who is the real knower, since he has the enlightenment power of consciousness. Second, there are objects in the world to be known. And third, there is the cognitive apparatus of the psyche, which reflects the properties of the objects on the one hand and the illuminating character of the Purusha on the other, resulting in the knowledge of the object. Vachaspati Mishra points out that whether the mind is in a wandering state, stupefied, occasionally steady, or in a one-pointed state, one is always aware of one's own thoughts. The Purusha or the seer, the unchanging, is considered the owner of the passing vrittis and is believed always to be aware of them. From the apparently uninterrupted and continuous character of our awareness, the yoga theorists infer the unchanging and self-same character of the Purusha or the self as knower. Yogic system proposes that the nature of the seer can be verified through the experience of asamprajanita samadhi. A yogi who experiences this form of samadhi has put a stop to the rapid succession of thoughts. The self as the center of the awareness remains unchanged since the continually emerging thoughts are blocked. It is an integral and holistic experience in which the unity of the experiencer is not questioned at all. The self is experienced as the center of awareness, pure and simple, and not as a subject who has directed his consciousness on some intended object. The experience of asamprajanita samadhi leads to a gradual purification of the stream of consciousness, so that the behavior of a person in the post-samadhi period no longer remains under the control of the cumulative effects of the past. The yogi is gradually released from the impelling force of the desires arising from the pleasurable or unpleasant experiences of the past. Life is no longer a continual process of unchanging perspective on the self and the world. The self-realized person is no longer becoming, since he has experienced the nature of the being, pure and simple. The transcendental basis of one's psychosocial identity is realized, and the ideal human condition described by yoga, which is called Kaivalya, is attained. Says Vyas, a person who has attained self-realization is no longer thrilled by joy or led to tears by the rise or fall of his fortunes. Since he has found a steadfast basis for his existence, he no longer needs to redefine his self-image in terms of gain or loss, praise or blame. Attaining self-realization or asamprajanita samadhi. Given the conceptual framework of self-realization, through attainment of asamprajanita samadhi, we can now proceed with a brief account of the steps required in its attainment. The 8 limbs. The following 8 aspects of yoga practice are important predecessors for attaining asamprajanita samadhi. The first 5 aspects are considered external or peripheral, and the last 3 are the core practices or antarang of yoga. First, restraints or yam. To abstain oneself from inflicting injuries, falsehood, theft, incontinence, or lust and avarice. These restrictions should not be considered lightly. These restraints have to be held true, irrespective of variations in place, time, or circumstance. Second, observances or niyam. The cultivation of virtues such as cleanliness, contentment, ascetic self-control, study and devotion to God. Cleanliness involves both bodily hygiene as well as the cleansing of the mind of evil thoughts. Contentment is the absence of desire for more possessions. Ascetic self-control is strict limitation on eating, drinking, sitting, speaking, and other such behavior so as to cultivate determination and endurance. Study is in the context of studying the means of attaining self-realization and spiritual liberation. Devotion to God involves relinquishment of the fruits of all actions to God. Yogic concept of God is different from the concept of the Creator God. God is defined simply as a special type of Purusha or self that is untouched by any accumulated residues of past karmas that perpetuate misery. It's important to note that yoga is a system closely related to the atheistic theory of Samkhyas. Third is posture or asana. Patanjali mentions stability or sthir and comfort or sukh as the criteria of the right posture. The body must remain at ease while the person remains alert. Fourth is breathing exercises or pranayam. According to Vyas, through the practice of breath control, the karma capable of covering the discriminative thinking dwindles away. It is not easy to say exactly what this means, but an attempt made by Paranjpe to paraphrase it is, breathing exercises have the capacity to dampen one's infatuation with one's ability to think, which sometimes overcomes us during moments of intellectual insight. Breathing exercises make us less enthusiastic than usual, but continuing to think is a syllogistic fashion. Fifth is withdrawing of the senses from their objects, or pratyahar. The activity of the senses in locating, recognizing, and interpreting stimuli is restrained. The outward bound direction of the senses is changed and turned inward so that the person is not distracted by external stimuli reaching his senses. Sixth is concentration or dharana. This is defined as binding of the processes of consciousness to a particular place. This is the first step towards controlling one's thought processes. A step in this direction is to focus attention on a particular place, such as the center of the eyebrows or his navel, or on a desired object in front of him, such as an idol of a favored deity. The seventh is contemplation or dhyan. It involves an attempt to hold on to thoughts, ideas, or an image, which is pratyay, of whatever object one has chosen to concentrate his attention upon. Thus, the stream of consciousness flows with homogeneous rather than heterogeneous content. It steadily forward ideas closely related to just one object or perhaps just one image of that object. The eighth is samadhi. Samadhi is a complex concept descriptive of a set of several altered states of consciousness. A person involved in a process of steady contemplation attains the state of samadhi when the contemplation transforms itself almost completely into the shape of its object and the contemplation loses itself, as it were, in the process. At this initial stage, the yogi attains only a primary or lower level of samadhi. Levels of samadhi. A yogi has to pass through various levels of samadhi in order to attain self-realization by reaching a samprajnata samadhi. All the levels of samadhi can be divided into two categories. First, samprajnata samadhi, that lies within the range of cognitive aspect of consciousness, and second, asamprajnata samadhi, that lies beyond the range of the cognitive aspect of the consciousness. Various levels of samadhi are as follows. First is Savitark samadhi. Savitark means with conjecture and reasoning. The yogi attains a primary level of samadhi when he is successful in holding on to a particular idea in terms of an object he chose to concentrate on in a steadfast manner over a reasonably long period of time. The second is Nirvitarka samadhi. In it, the yogi is said to have acquired a superior form of direct perception. He dispels from his mind all forms of social learning, irrespective of the harmful or beneficial character of such learning. The yoga system claims that by ridding himself of the socially learned component of knowledge, the yogi is able to acquire a superior form of cognition of whatever object he chooses to concentrate upon. the knowledge of the past and future events, knowledge of other minds, and other such forms of extrasensory knowledge are attained through deliberate and systematic modification of the ordinary mode of cognition. The yogi ignores the peripheral or incidental properties of the object and is now able to comprehend the thing in itself. The third is Savikar Samadhi. Vyas suggests that in this state, the cognition of the object is characterized by space, time, and cause. According to Paranjape, the reference to space and time might suggest that, notwithstanding the lack of focus on the object as whole, the object is still contextualized in space and time. As indicated by Vyas, although the yogi focuses upon only those characteristics of the object that are perceived at the time of his attention, however, the yogi may be aware of the temporal context in which color, order, and other characteristics of the object appeared in the single initial act of cognition. According to Vachaspati Misra, the reference to cause in this context implies the elemental tanmaras that constitute the object. The fourth is Nirvikar Samadhi. According to Vyas, this state is attained when the yogi's cognition is no longer characterized by the past, present, or future characteristics which did, do, or will particularize the object of his cognition. Here, the yogi's cognition is dissociated completely from the spatio-temporal context within which the object of his cognition is located. The cognition in this state is characterized or colored by the tanmatras alone. In this state, the yogi's attention is withdrawn from the object out there. He is fully absorbed into the experience of the object. According to Patanjali, the outcomes of gaining expertise in attaining this state are the experience of inner bliss, adhyatma prasad, and attainment of truth-bearing insight, tambhara prajan. The fifth is Sa-Ananda Samadhi. This level emerges when yogi shifts his attention from an object of his cognition to the means of his cognition, his senses. The yogi withdraws his attention not only from the external world but also from any intended object. What occupies the yogi's mind in this condition is only a sensory experience or mere conscious content. Focusing on the means of cognition results in the predominance of the sattva gun, of which illumination is an inherent characteristic. Yogi in this state experiences bliss. The sixth is Sa-Asmita Samadhi. This stage of samadhi emerges when the yogi continues to further withdraw his attention, so it shifts from the senses or sensory content and rests on his sense of self or egoism, that is asmita. The cognizer or the self as subject is aware of self as object. The yogi is in a self-conscious state in which one is not conscious of anything but oneself. The seventh is Asamprajnata Samadhi. This state is devoid of all objects of cognition. The experiencing subject is completely withdrawn into himself so that he is no longer conscious of anything. This condition emerges when all varieties of the processes of consciousness, chitta vrittis like observing, thinking, imagining, dreaming, remembering, and others are completely restrained. There is no direct sensation since the mind is withdrawn from external objects, and even the processes of emergence and disappearance of images is so constrained that this process comes almost completely to a halt. Therefore, this state arises when the mind ceases to engage in the various processes or acts of consciousness. Emergence of a self-realized person. As mentioned under self and identity, the yogi who has achieved the Asamprajnata Samadhi is a self-realized person who has experienced the nature of his being and has attained the ideal human condition, which is called Kaivalya. Paranjpe stated that a yogi may remain in samadhi for a few minutes, maybe hours, and rarely for a day or so. Only exceptional and legendary figures like Ramakrishna Paramhans were said to be able to pass into a samadhi state at will and stay in it for indefinite periods of time. The gains that accrue during various stages of samadhi are development of a superior form of direct perception, an essence envisioning perspective on objects, a truth-bearing insight, an experience of bliss, and so on. There are also lasting gains that follow the experience of samadhi and continue to accumulate throughout the life of a yogi. A gradual transformation of the entire pattern of life may also follow. A yogi who has once experienced a samadhi state begins to release himself gradually from the suffering associated with the ordinary course of life. The traces left behind by the blissful samadhi experience prompts the yogi to seek more experiences of the same type. As residual effects of samadhi experience accumulate, they strengthen the tendency to seek the inner bliss and prevent more and more of the tendencies to seek ordinary pleasures from emerging into the streams of consciousness. The result is thus a positive cycle leading to a gradual purification of the stream of consciousness, characterized by increased desirelessness and a decreased sense of frustrations and misery. Over a period of time, therefore, the yogi is able to eradicate the stranglehold of the burden of past karma and attains an absolute release from the miseries of life. The samadhi experience, in contrast to the ordinary experience, tends to impede rather than perpetuate the cycle of karma, its residual effects, and new karma. The validation of the samadhi states. Vyas explains the basic principle of the knowledge of the higher states of consciousness when he asserts that only yoga is the means to the knowledge of yoga. This means that the true knowledge of samadhi states lies in actually experiencing them and not merely in their verbal description. Just as anyone who repeats the operational steps involved in a scientific experiment is guaranteed to get the results described in the standard literature, anyone who wishes to follow the guidelines set by yoga may be assured of finding what the yogis came to have discovered. The statements of yoga can be said to be publicly verifiable. The nature of samadhi can only be privately verified because, like the experience of pain, samadhi belongs to an essentially private domain inaccessible to anyone who has not experienced it. Summary: Yoga is both a system of philosophy and a technology for psychosomatic spiritual development. It is one of the 6 major schools of Brahmanical philosophy. Although the word yoga in the sense of a method appears in some of the Upanishads such as Maitrayani, Svitasvatra and Katha, it was in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra its first systematic treatment is found. As Das Gupta points out, Patanjali collected the different yoga practices, systematized diverse ideas on the subject, and grafted them on Samkhya metaphysics. In yoga, the misery involved in the unending cycle of birth, death, and rebirth is considered similar to a disease. According to Patanjali's theory, the root cause of this misery is the identification of the real self, the knower, with the objects of his knowledge, the known. Yoga is based upon the dualistic metaphysics of Samkhya system, which suggests 2 basic principles of reality, namely the Prakriti and Purusha. Purusha is often considered synonymous with the real self. Prakriti underlies the material world. The product of the contact of Purusha with Prakriti is called Chit. It leads to the origination of individual phenomenal selves as distinguished from unattached real selves or purushas, which is involved in the journey from one life cycle to another. Chitta can be referred to as the mind. Chitta involves three basic qualities or gunas, namely sattva or luminosity, rajas or activity, and tamas or heaviness or inertia. Constant interplay of these qualities leads to modifications in chitta called vrittis. Patanjali defines yoga as the control or restraint of the processes of consciousness. The ability of controlling one's mental processes leads to the ideal human condition free from all miseries. According to Patanjali, the root cause for all suffering is misconception or avidya, whereby one mistakes the non-self for the self, the impermanent for the permanent, bad for good, and misery for happiness. Yogic system proposes that the nature of the seer or unchanging can be verified through the experience of asamprajnata samadhi. A yogi who experiences this form of samadhi has put a stop to the rapid succession of thoughts. The self is experienced as the center of awareness, pure and simple, and not as a subject who has directed his consciousness on some intended object. 8 aspects of yoga practice are important predecessors for attaining asamprajnata samadhi, namely restraints or yama, observances or niyam, posture or asana, breathing exercises or pranayam, withdrawing of the senses from their objects or pratyahar, concentration or dharana, contemplation or dhyan, and samadhi. Samadhi is a complex concept descriptive of a set of several altered states of consciousness. Yogi has to pass through various levels of samadhi in order to attain self-realization by reaching a samprajnata samadhi. Various levels of samadhi are savitark samadhi, nirvitark samadhi, savikar samadhi, nirvikar samadhi, sa-anand samadhi, sa-asmita samadhi, and asamprajnata samadhi. The yogi who has achieved the asamprajnata samadhi is self-realized person who has experienced the nature of his being and has attained the ideal human condition of Kaivalya. Other gains that accrue during various stages of samadhi are development of a superior form of direct perception, and a sense envisioning perspective on objects, a truth-bearing insight, an experience of bliss, and so on. There are also lasting gains that follow the experience of samadhi and continue to accumulate throughout the life of a yogi. A gradual transformation of the entire pattern of life may also follow. Question about the validation of samadhi states is often answered as, just as anyone who repeats the operational steps involved in a scientific experiment is guaranteed to get the results described in the standard literature, anyone who wishes to follow the guidelines set by yoga may be assured of finding what the yogis came to have discovered. The statements of yoga can be said to be publicly verifiable.